And that when you look at themes, and you're looking at the theme of any text, you're taking the main idea and discussing how it is evoked by the text, or how it is represented by the text. And that I choose the theme of death and how the text represents that idea. But sometimes it has multiple main ideas. And that it's not just talking about death, it's talking about death in the multiple sorts of ways. And it's got lots of very different allusions that it's making. And it makes it a little bit hard to just associate it to death. There may be other factors involved. You may need to extend your definition of what the theme is. And so what do I do? It may also just be simply impossible to get your head around. And again, you're panicking. What do I do? What do I do? Well, what do you do? First of all, you try to find a connection between your ideas and think about their relationships with each other. So if you've got a number of varied ideas, if you pick out the main idea as death, but it's a very simple explanation, then maybe you've got to look around for some other clues about what else it could be suggesting. And if it's making some sort of very snide or satirical sort of statements, then maybe it's trying to say something else about death. You may need to think deeper about how that theme is portrayed. And okay, if death is portrayed as being a small child, for instance, it's a very out there sort of image. Okay, what else is it trying to suggest by using that image as opposed to perhaps the classic Grim Reaper? So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at doing just that. We're going to look at a short poem with a complex theme and look at how the relationship between ideas create this complex theme. So let's look at the poem first of all. Now this is a poem by Emily Dickinson, and it's called I Died for Beauty But Was Scarce. Now I'll just read the poem very quickly to you, and then we'll go through it bit by bit and basically look through the idea of themes. Now to start with, the most obvious theme is death, and it's romanticized for its imagery, and that's the very simple explanation. So we'll read the poem now. So I died for beauty but was scarce, adjusted in the tomb, when one who died for truth was lain in an adjoining room. He questioned softly why I failed. For beauty, I replied, and I for truth, the two are one, we brethren are, he said. And so, as kinsmen met a night, we talked between the rooms, until the moss had reached our lips and covered up our names. Alright, now if I was talking about death, well yes, we know it's about death because it says so in the title. That's a very simple explanation. It's not generally giving us the main idea of what it's about. So we need to extend that. And as I mentioned, it's way too simple of an explanation. What we need to do is, as I said, we really need to extend this. We need to go into more detail. So what we need to do is we need to look at perhaps this unification of the two souls, this idea of beauty and truth, which they're saying is the reasons why they died. So we've got these really strong virtues. It's almost this martyrdom. And what that means is that they died for these particular causes. One, she died for beauty and he died for truth. They died for these really romantic values. And they're all joined together, almost like they're a collection of bones in the same sort of grave. And then it gets taken over by nature, and it's basically suggesting then that death is erasing the value of life. And everything that they stood for in their lives is ultimately erased by them dying. And it has a very sort of sad tone compared to this optimistic sort of opening. But ultimately it sort of relates to this image of what the poem is really about. And it's about using your imagination in this case. So by using your imagination to generate these sorts of ideas, you're able to basically generate your own ideas and be able to talk about it. Now, this complex definition of the theme represents the poem with more clarity. As I said, if I was just saying it was about death, it's not going to give me a very strong response. Whereas if I say is death erasing the values of life, it's starting to represent it with a greater sense of what the main idea is. And it often leads to a much stronger discussion because I've got more to launch off here. If I start talking about death, I'm going to be talking about a number of different images, and it's not going to be a very strong argument. Whereas if I start to relate those ideas to this value of life being erased, and these images which do sort of erase their value of life, then that starts to represent in a much stronger fashion.